Hey guys, it's Steve from Natural Selection Angling, and today we've got a really good one for you. This is going to be a video about overcoming adversity and making your customers happy. My client designed these spoons. One is a casting spoon of the little Clio type, and the other is a casting spoon of the Castmaster type. So this video we're going to cover the bottom one, which is his concept. And boy, did this job start out wrong. I ordered the blanks from my supplier, and when they arrived, they were totally defective. Every single hole in the blank was burred and pushed out. They obviously didn't have any quality control before they went into the bin, right, for shipping. So what I have to do is fix every single one of these before I start. Now you can see one sitting on the tray in the bottom left corner. That one, the hole is punched through the rim, so that one's dead. And now I only have 9 of these for my 10-piece job. Okay, so I got on the horn with the supplier and had him send me 10 more. But, you know, I'm gonna make a nice video out of this, I'm thinking. So let me just overcome adversity and get the job done. So once they're all drilled out, then I'm going to wipe them down with a paper towel, because the towel will sacrifice itself against any sharp parts and tell me if I've missed anything. And boy, did I find one quick. I forgot one. We'll just take care of that one, and then we'll be ready to move on. Okay. Now, I'm going to use a very coarse grit sponge to sand these, because as I push down on the blank, it's going to sink into the sponge and conform to the curve, and it just gives a better result. So I'll knock all these out. You know, you, like me, bait painters, man, we sand half our lives, right? Now that's looking pretty good. That's a usable piece. Now I'm still one short, but I'll get the other ones before I finish the job. I'm going to wipe these down with 99% isopropyl alcohol and give them a really good cleaning, because you want a very clean slate to start the job, right? Everything depends on the adhesion to the original surface. And I have a method that I use that works really well for this, and that's to use a really deep sand and then 40-30 clear straight onto the blank using a dump gun, a cheap 0.5 millimeter gun, and then I'm going to hit it with the white primer. After that, I'm going to hit it with UVLS just to protect that paint underneath. So I'm going to add some white metallic mica and some green glow powder to the epoxy. That's the way I'm going to do this job. Sometimes I spray it on, but this way produces a much deeper glow. You can get a much thicker layer. First, I'm going to add the hardener only to the vessel, and then I'm going to use about half its volume of glow powder. And then I'm going to use about a 1/4 teaspoon or so, not much, of the mica powder. And this will give a really nice glow finish with some shiny flakes in it. And when I add the resin to the mix, then what will happen by the nature of how I mix this is it'll turn out to be about 4-to-1 resin to glow powder, okay? I'm gonna mix this really, really good and make sure that it's very consistent. Okay, now that's mixed into the hardener, and I'm gonna go ahead and add the resin. I do it that way because I don't want the chemical reaction to start and the open time to be reduced while I'm still working on stuff. I want it ready to go when I'm ready to go. Okay, this looks pretty good. Now, I'm working on an HDPE tablet here. Nothing will stick to it. And I'm gonna just do these spoons right on this surface. I'm not gonna turn these on the first pass. And there's a reason, okay? When I epoxy coat these and put them into the incubator overnight to cure, the epoxy is gonna settle towards the edges of the spoon. And you probably don't remember this because why would you? But the drawings at the beginning show a white rim around a green inlay, okay? So I want to really pile up that glow along the edge where it's going to be white and not have paint over it. So it really pops. And so the first coat, I'm just going to let this run by gravity down to the edges. So it'll be a little thicker at the edges and a little less thick in the middle. And I'll show you how I deal with that later. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and get these done. Bang them out. And then get them onto the heating pad in the incubator so they're ready for me in the morning. Okay, these look pretty good. And I'm not going to worry about if there's drips over the edge or anything like that. I'm going to take care of that later. So you'll see, I'll show you how to weed these out if you have issues. Using the black light flashlight is a great way to QC when you're doing glow work. It'll show you right away what you missed or what doesn't look right. Okay, next morning, coffee. Okay, you can see these look just like I want them to look. The edges have heavy glow and there's not so much glow in the middle. Now, I like to weed these out as I go along because once the epoxy gets thick, it becomes harder to deal with. And these aren't fully cured, they're just dried overnight. So I'm weeding them out by just pushing it all through the holes, and it kind of just breaks the epoxy right out of the hole and it comes out like a little plug. On to our favorite activity, and that's another sand. And I'm going to use a very coarse grit sanding sponge again, but I'm not going to press down very hard on it, okay? The idea here is I want to have good tooth on the surface for the epoxy to bond to. Epoxy can be bonded in two ways, chemically and by tooth. This was an overnight full set of the epoxy, so now it's got to be sanded. And you can see as I'm doing this, I'm taking it down to the bare metal along all the edges again. I don't want to build this stuff up so I have to struggle with it later. I just take it down when it happens. These look good. Now I got to clean my workstation. Our old friend, ISO 99. I'm going to give these blanks a good wipe down now and get all of the dust and particulate matter off of them and prepare the surface for the next step. You want these really clean. That's proper. I have to find a way to get these things in the turner, but I don't want anything touching the front side, okay? And ask me how I know. It's not good just to tape something to the back of the spoon. As they're in the turner, you know, as the heat works on it and the moisture comes off, they fall, right? And they fall into each other. And then you wake up in the morning, you check your batch and you're just devastated. So what I'm gonna do is put a piece of tape on the back of the spoon, and then I'm just gonna use a chopstick, and I use these for painting J-plugs all the time. I stick them in the hole. And it's gonna be just a tape to tape glue, okay? And it's gonna be a very good bond because the tape's gonna hold great when it's flat, but if you try to tape, you know, a stick down to the back, it's probably gonna come off, right? But this will allow easy removal later. I'll just peel the tape right off the back of the spoon and we're in business. Back to this again. Just gonna repeat the process now. Deepen the glow, deepen the sparkle, but I'm gonna save you the agony of watching me mix this stuff up again. So we're just gonna brush it on. And this time, after I put on a nice liberal coat, I'm gonna put it into the turner and it's just gonna self-level and it's gonna be great. Just make sure you work it from edge to edge all the way across the spoon. But you don't have to be too neat with this, to be honest with you, because it's going to be in the turner, it's going to be over the heater, and I'll show you more about this turner system that I use. It's all self-enclosed, and this way it keeps all dust and dirt out, and it's easy to control the environment inside. And so once these come off, next day now, another day. Be patient. I'll pull the chopsticks off the back, and I gave them an inspection with the black light because that'll tell me if there is a mistake that needs to be corrected. And it's always better to just correct what you can now. So the next step here is going to be paint. So I don't want to devastate this surface with sandpaper the way I did before. I just want enough tooth for paint to adhere. And I like to use these green pads. They work great for this. They're easy on your hands, they don't make a ton of dust, but they do scuff up the surface pretty good. And that's what you're looking for, is just some tooth for the paint to adhere to. All right, I did wipe these down with alcohol. And now I'm creating a stencil in the negative because this needs a green inlay on the top of the spoon. And the inlay doesn't go edge to edge, right? It has that white rim around the whole thing. So I need to create this in the inverse. So I'm going to cut out from this piece of masking tape the shape that I want painted onto the bait. And you can see I just made a little cardboard template for it so that they're all consistent. And the way I'm going to do this is to just peel the tape up, but not all the way off of the tablet. And I'm just going to push the spoon right up to the stencil. And I left the piece of tape that I cut on the board, okay? And so when I push the spoon up, that piece of tape is right up against the inside back rim of the spoon. I can feel when it's in the right position, and I'm visually checking where the eye is in the front. And then I'm just going to lay the stencil down straight as I can. I'm not going to pull on it or twist it. If it's not straight, I'll move the spoon. You can see there's a couple done to the left. I'm working out the process here. What's the easiest way to do it? And you'll see throughout my videos that in the beginning I struggle because I'm thinking it through. Then I get some semblance of economy of scale, not much. Okay, now that opening is right where the green paint needs to go. and it's becoming a more simple process. I now know what I want to do, and I can work a little more quickly. Also, be kind to yourself, because a lot of this has to do with your handedness, right? And so a lot of this I struggle with because I'm trying to orient it for the camera, where if I were orienting it for my handedness, right, to use my dominant hand to perform the operation, it would look more like this, okay? Kind of on an angle where my dominant hand can do this scroll cutting, without too much trouble. So after I did the first couple, then I just started doing them 3, 4 at a time. And, you save a little bit of time. You're not exactly banging them out. But this is a pretty complex job as far as, paint job goes on a small little spoon. This is only a 2/5 ounce spoon. It's, maybe 1.5 inches long. It's a small canvas. Okay, down to the last one. And this is just, one of the tedious things we have to do on this job. There's so much tedium to go around, it's unreal. This job has so many job steps. It took me, like almost a week to get it all done. You got cycle time to think of, right? Things have to dry and cure. So back with some more ISO, because I couldn't do this taping operation with gloves on. The tape kept sticking to the glove and it just was a pain. So I did it barehanded, and I'll just hit it with this ISO to prepare the surface. But I'm not gonna get it very wet, and I'm not gonna work it against the edges of the tape because I want the tape to stay down. I don't wanna break the glue. Okay, so I'm just a gentle, quick wipe, and 99 ISO works great because it evaporates instantly. It's not sitting there working like a solvent on the glue. And you can see the stuff came off of there, pretty dirty. Okay, we're gonna use some wicked fluorescent green. I'm also using my better gun here too. This is an Iwata Eclipse because I care about what's happening now. Before I didn't care because I was spraying primer and clear coat. I'm just blasting it. But now I'm looking for a more even finish and a more professional looking result. In between coats, I hit this with a hairdryer, and I did these 2 times. I don't want them to be super, super dark. The design calls for a lighter fluorescent green, and I also want the glow to fluoresce through the paint. And it's really cool when you use fluorescent paint because it'll not only glow, but the light from the glowing glow powder ignites the neon too. So it's a pretty cool effect. All right, moment of truth, man. This is where normally you're just dreading it, right? But this is pretty good. I've been around the block several 100,000 times, obviously, and I'm mechanically inclined and handy. So that helps. But man, when it comes out like this, it really puts you in the right frame of mind to power through the rest of the tedium that goes along with these jobs. But I can tell now the hard part's over. Like, this was probably the hardest job step, to get this part just right. Now, making lures it's a mix of kind of science and art. It's engineering, but it's problem solving and artwork too. All right, now these are going to get 40-30 clear over the top, and I'm going to use the dump gun. I want to make sure that result is protected in case I have a mistake coming up. Then I can just wipe it off and go back to this clean slate again. You can see the epoxy's in the hole here. There's some weeding to do. I want to get that done before I go any further. And I don't want to chip the paint or anything like that. So I use this method. It works really well. Don't use a lighter to heat up the awl or the pin or whatever you're going to use. Use a heat gun, because you don't want to leave black soot everywhere. So you just heat that up fairly strong, right? And then gently press it through the eye. And what's going to happen is the material that's exposed directly to the hot metal is going to crystallize instantly. It's going to turn into like a white powder. Right? You're not using any force here. You see that powder on the back? Yeah, comes right out. And I just wipe it off, and it doesn't take any work. Real simple, and it comes out totally clean. We're gonna put some red glow eyes on here. As I was doing this build, the eyes are supposed to be a red oval with a white iris and a black pupil. Okay, but I was having the fits trying to make an oval stencil from what I had. I had plastic ones, but they're hard plastic, and it was going to be oversprayed. It was going to be ugly. So while I was working this through, I got on the horn with my client who was out fishing for salmon at that time, which made me jealous, but that's another story. And I explained to him, I sent him a couple pictures, and I said, look, man, this is probably the best red eye that I can do that's going to be clean. And he said, hey, as long as it's red, because red has to be part of the design. So this way I was able to preserve his inputs in the outputs, but also do something that's going to work better in the long run and is much easier for me to do. So here, what I'm doing is the exact specifications from his design. It's a couple of small dots and a larger dot. Small dot, larger dot, small dot, larger dot. And it turns out to be a total of something like 10 or 11 dots. They're very close together. And then they're going to be, the dots are going to be kind of extruded out a little bit into some black, ribs. So I'll just use a small dotting tool, and I'll get it wet before I start this because I don't want to deplete the paint that's in the dots. Maybe you heard it. I liked the way the first one came out. I knew this was going to be a good method to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this one up in this scheme, right? So I can see what I'm working with. I'm not going to do more than one until I see that, it's pleasing, satisfying to me. But as I'm going through this, I'm starting to have the thought that this thing's too busy. It's just too busy. It kind of takes away from the aesthetic. So this is the pattern that he wanted, but I think it's not good. But before I try to pitch him on something different, even though it's for his own good, right? That's not how customers see it. They think you're, making a change order on them. I want to do one the way that I think it'll look better. And then I can show them a picture and say, look, this is your design, but I think this is cleaner and better. So I'm just going to go ahead and hammer one out. And what I'm going to do is place 5 large dots on it. I'm going to put one behind the eye, and then I'm going to put one back by the tail. And then I'm going to split the difference, and then split the difference twice more so that they're all evenly spaced. Right? So first, last, middle, and then the 2. And now I'm going to start pulling these out into the ribs. Again, just using a very small dotting tool. And I'm pulling the paint out, and I'm not touching the surface of the spoon with the tool. I'm just drawing the paint out. And at the end, I'm lifting slightly and stretching it so it comes more to a point. Now, I'll tell you what, when we get to this last one, I would stop right here. Like, that to me is a great looking spoon. That's how I would fish it. But let's carry on and get a close approximation to what my client wants. And then we'll ping him and say, hey, buddy, this is what we've got. What do you think? And I can still go back to his design. There's nothing that can't be undone yet. Now it's just as simple of splitting these spaces again, right? So you're getting a symmetrical product this way. Now you don't want it to look mechanical, right? It should look more natural. There should be variation in it. But from piece to piece, you should look at it and go, oh, these look very much alike. These are similar. These are the same. So I got on the phone with him. I sent him the pictures, and he said, yes, I agree. The less busy version looks better. So now I'm just going to go ahead and bang these out that way. The super glue that I use is a gel glue, and I think this is the best option because it has a longer set time, and then when you set the eye down on it, you can still move it around like it's floating on a bubble of gel. And then when you get it where you want it, you just push down on it. Okay, now you're going to see some workflow happen, right? I did 2 of them in the full manual, very slow way, and I'm going to do the remaining 8 in the full manual, but a little faster way. Once you get in the rhythm, you can get a little more work done. It's always about trying to develop a workflow that gets you the result the quickest possible way, even if it's the quickest way is still really slow, which I paint everything by hand. Every single thing I make is by hand. I'm not gonna lie though, this was very satisfying. I really enjoyed this because once I got in the rhythm, I really liked the way they were coming out, and each one was a pleasant surprise at the end. Wow, this is great. I really like this. And I'm super hard on myself and very critical of what I make, and I see every mistake, but I try not to dwell on that because these things happen, right? So the ones that I can recover from, I do. If I have to toss a piece, I'll do that too. Typically what happens is I just get the seconds to fish and my firsts get sold. So, no big deal. I got 20 of these blanks now, so I can afford a mishap or two. And there it is, guys. 10 really nice pieces. Okay, so I forgot to edit in that I hit them with 40-30 clear again. And I'm not going to use UVLS from here out because I don't want anything absorbing UV light that's going to make the glow fluoresce. So you'll see that I make my epoxy by weight because I've determined the specific gravity for each part, and I know 1 part of resin is 0.83 parts of hardener. So look, man, I'm making it in small batches, but you can see it's dead nuts, right? The percent error is 0. And I don't think you can ever get that measuring by volume in a graduated cylinder. You're not going to get it. You can see too, I'm holding the tip of the bottle way down in the cup because this stuff builds up wicked static for some reason, and it'll literally jump to the side of the cup. Like you could be streaming it right down the middle and it'll jump right over and stick to the side. So that kind of stuff is where you get ratio errors, right? And just remember that when you're mixing in very small batches like this is enough to do 10 small spoons. Any error is going to be amplified, right? A 1% error at this level is going to be 2% at half that level. Smaller the batch, the more accurate you have to be. Now this does not have to go back on the turner because I'm going to use very thin coats. We're to the point where I just want to protect the paint now. I'm not trying to build up a glow base or anything like that. I just want my work not to get wrecked. Man, these are really starting to come up nice. I don't know if the video does it justice, but man, they look really good live. There it is. That's essentially what the finished product's going to look like. So, like always, got to knock them all out, right? One after another in serial fashion, one at a time until they're done. That's the way I make stuff, though. It's serial monotasking. There's just no efficiencies that can be had where something's happening while you're waiting for something to cure or dry while you're on to the next. It just doesn't happen that way. Every one of these baits is in the same life cycle of its production. That's it. So I'll put them on the center of the tray, and then I'm going to just put the tray right in the incubator over top of the heater pad. Now, these two coats together are about half the thickness of the two coats I put on before, to give you an idea, the proportionality of it. These are looking really good now. We're in the home stretch here. Next morning, I have a coffee. They came out of the incubator and they look great. But now we have to weed them. Look at that thing, man. Some plugged holes. I'm just breaking them all off the board and giving them a visual inspection to kind of see what's the worst and, deal with that first. So I'm just going to take the awl here and kind of peel up the edges of this epoxy. Now, remember, this is dry, but it's not fully cured. So it's still flexible. And this stuff dries pretty flexible too. Now, if you just work at it, this one's being stubborn, but you'll see it'll just pop out like a plug. Right? The sharp edges of the spoon actually just cut the material right off. But you never, at this point, want to be pushing down from the top. That part, that's over, okay? If you're going to do anything like that mechanically, you're just going to rip the paint underneath as you stretch and pull on the surface. So use other techniques to do this weeding, right? So I'm just using a razor knife and the awl. And if something is super, super stubborn, I'll heat up the awl and I'll push it through from the top very gently. And that basically cauterizes it around it and pushes out that kind of snowflake material out the backside. Well, that's about it. I mean, it was quite a bit of work, but nothing too hard to do. And there it is, guys. Like, come on, man. Who wouldn't be proud of something like that? That's pride and quality in that piece right there, guys. And then when you flip off the lights, wow, these things just pop. Look at that. They glow really, really hard. Well, that's about it, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Come back for the next one. Take care, y'all.